Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to look at the Masterbox 600. Now, it's quite a strangely placed case because it's quite well priced and it's also really early doors for the Project Zero / BTF backwards connectors, but it's really aggressive on price. The case is £100 in GBP, but comes with 4 fans. So you get 3 140mm ARGB sickle flows in the front, and then there's an ARGB, and it's the CF120. I have to have a look through because I've had no documentation from Cooler Master about this at all. But you get those 4 fans and a controller kind of in the back. It's like a hub that it all attaches to, all for that £100. And you still get the tempered glass, you still get room for an AIO. But I'm going to tell you too much too quickly. Let's get in for a look. Front and top, as always, at the start. Power switch, little LED ring around the outside just to tell you that it's on. It's white. Reset switch. Then you have your combined headphone microphone, USB-C, USB-A. They're obviously 3.2 Gen 2. Lovely, easy. We can take the magnetic mesh off the top. Now, normally I wouldn't run these because it's like a dust filter and you should have this exhaust in, but it does become a feature of the case and does help clean the lines up quite nicely. So I would still run this if it was me. But you can see that you have room up here for 360mm radiator, which I have fitted. And it is the Atmos, so it's normal AIO sort of 30mm thick rad, 25mm fans, easy peasy. But if you wanted to, you can put a couple of 140mm fans up here as well. You would probably be able to get a 280mm AIO up there as well, but it's all going to come down to radiator thickness. So just choose wisely. You'll be able to get a set of fans and a 30mm radiator above the motherboard. Onto the front. Really nice understated front panel. Grey accents down the side, and I'm actually a big fan of the grey on this case. Like, it's completely winning me over. Small Cooler Master logo down the bottom. It does look like this centre section should come out because it's quite independent and proud from everything else, but it doesn't. It is just a single piece that pulls away. I will say though that if you're into your painting and stuff at the weekend, the tabs are all really easily removable. So if you wanted to, you can paint without smashing the fan. You can paint the centre mesh a completely different colour to the outside mesh if you wanted to go on a colour combo. Just crazy weekend, like weekend modding. There you can see the 3 140mm fans in there. There is no separate dust filter or anything like that. It's just the dust filter from the front of the case. So you will have to, don't forget, with the dust filter, it's only going to suck what's in your room already. So if you start getting problems with dust, maybe get your Hoover out around your room a little bit more often, and it will help. On the side of the case though, honestly, this grey tint on a white case is just perfect. It actually gives it such a grown-up vibe. I really like this. I mean, just to show you the difference with the camera, obviously it's all lovely and white inside, but with this ever so slight tint, I do really like it. Now, I do also wish they had a completely clear version, because some of you out there will just want everything to pop and stand out. And it's the only thing that I think could differentiate between the white buyers, is maybe they would have liked a completely clear window on the side. Round the back, we do have a very simple layout. One of the things I will say is the power supply, as you'll see with the power supply cover, there's no vents in it. So the power supply can only go face downwards, and there is a little bit of dust filtering there for you. It's just a very simple bit of grey mesh, which you can remove. There's no magnets. It's one of the things I wish they had done, is maybe put a magnet on it to make it easier, because you do just have to then sit and put it through, but you're not going to be doing this very often, so it doesn't overly matter too much. Nothing else to report on the bottom at all other than foam feet. And I've just pulled the dust filtering off at the bottom already. Okay, but that was my fault. I had my hand on it. It's not a case problem. Anyway, 120mm fan, only 120mm fan. Nothing else around here to report other than the fixed PCI shields around the back. They are the old school versions that you have to remove. So only remove the ones that you want unless you have some spare PCI slots to screw in. They are quite tough to get out though. So that's there's two angles to that. It does mean that they're not going to rattle and they're going to stay there for the life of the case if you don't want them removed. If you do want to remove them though, first of all, as with the video, push through with your thumbs. Then I did find the best thing to do after that is use a pair of pliers to be able to rattle and move the case parts out. If you push too hard with your thumb and keep trying to move it, you can bend the little tabs in between up here, but you can bend them straight really easily. It's just one of those ones where they've saved money by doing this, and you just have to go careful when you're doing it. Easiest way would be to see what ones you need to remove before you fit the motherboard. Take them out without the motherboard in and then fit your motherboard afterwards. But you can get away with it with the board in as I've shown you. Round the back, very simple rear panel. And then it's the BTF side of things. Now with the BTF side of things, we do still have grommets down the outside for those of you that don't want to run it. But as you can see here, I've got the white Cooler Master power supply in the bottom. I've tucked all of the cables, or most of the cables, in the hard drive cage at the bottom, which is removable, but you can fit a couple of 3.5-inch hard drives down there if you want. They will obviously take smaller drives as well if you want. But the most important thing is you can get 3 2.5-inch drives up here if you are running SATA. Up here, this is where your little hub is. This is so that you can change the lights on the case if you want. As they are at the moment, we've got them all synced up with the motherboard, but it can do both, and you use the reset switch to be able to change between. It's also got a fan hub in here which we've got wired into the CPU fan, so all of the fans are working in conjunction with this. Actually, I tell a porcupine, I've wired these fans into the sys fan port, and then this the AIO I have wired into the CPU fan port. But you can see there's plenty of room around the back. One of the things I am quite happy to tell you about is with the front panel USBs, it does fit in with the side panel on and there's no problems. There has been problems with other cases with there not being enough rear room. I am still going to say that I think, you know, sort of 90-degree connectors and that sort of thing is going to be better, but they have to think about people with front mounting hardware as well. Other than that, all very tidy, all very clean, and we have no problems. On to the business side of the case. You can see at the front there is a large section there if you wanted to fit a front mounted radiator. Obviously it's going to depend on what you have fitted in the roof, but with the roof you can fit a 30mm thick radiator and a set of fans above the motherboard, which as you can see as we slide down very lumpily, I have done, and there is clearance. In the front, it's going to depend on what you have. If you're just fitting a front mount in there, then there are 3 140s in the front, but I actually think that you're going to run into issues with end tanks, as in the bit that stands on the top of the radiator for the hoses and everything to connect to, and I'm just a little bit unsure, as you can see with the look at the top, that you're not going to be able to get it in. So I'm going to say, just to be careful, 360mm radiator in the front if it is just the front radiator. If you wanted to put a rad in the front, I would say 360 280 downwards. In the roof, again 360 280 downwards, just to err on the side of caution so that you don't run into any issues. Below the motherboard tray, or below the motherboard, you can see we have these tabs. that are cut out. Now this is obviously, we don't need them for Project Zero, but they are there for normal motherboards still. It would have been nice if they had grommets, but we do need to remember this is a £100 case with 4 RGB fans. Same with this fitting here. I do kind of wish that it had a grommet over it, but it all looks incredibly tidy and fits it all really nicely. And as I've said, I really like that grey window. For the eagle-eyed amongst you, you may have noted the 360mm Atmos, which they have finally launched in white. They told me porky pies and told me that they weren't going to do it. They actually, in the end, told me that there was a 360 coming, but we weren't going to get a 240, but they are both available. Prices you'll have to see in your local area. But obviously with a £100 case, you may end up wanting to run lower end cooling. So you do have options like the Hyper 622 white, and they do have a 120mm white ring cooler as well. And I'm looking around, and I should have grabbed it beforehand, but I'm pretty sure I have it fitted into a case. If you're wondering if I'm out of breath, yes I am. I'm just suffering with a bit of asthma at the moment. Now, £100 case, 4 fans. What is there to moan about? Really, the only thing to moan about are the rear PCI things. You just need to take a little bit of care, and I found it easier to push them out with my thumb and then use some pliers. If you do it that way, I don't think you're going to run into any problems. Don't be too ham-fisted with it, don't be too aggressive, and you will be okay. It is actually easier to take them out without the motherboard in, so you can just nestle the motherboard in, see which ones you need to remove for your graphics card, and then pop them out before you fit the motherboard, and then you'll be really easy. It will be really easy for you. But if it does annoy you, you don't like the look of them in there, you can remove them all and then just fit some spare PCI brackets, maybe that you've bought off of eBay. You can buy white mesh ones, you can buy black mesh ones, if you wanted to, for a few pounds. Some would say maybe Cooler Masters should have done that, but I think if you said to me you can either have an extra RGB fan or some of those covers, I probably would have taken the extra RGB fan, because unless you're building your very, very first case, there's a high possibility you might have some of these spares, and it's definitely something that you can pick up off of friends or cheap on eBay if you wanted to upgrade. Obviously, we've got the MSI Zero stuff in here. This is one of the other caveats I'd say about the case. It's Zero and BTF ready. The Zero and BTF boards at the moment are quite expensive though, so a £100 case with a £400 board, and even more so when you think about Asus, and they've got their own BTF graphics cards specific to the boards. Things get expensive very quickly. But in Cooler Master's defence, I think what they're doing is they're getting the case in early for those of you later on that maybe end up upgrading, maybe buying second-hand stuff, or for when the boards become more mainstream, the case is already out there and ready. Also, again, putting a different hat on, I think we're going to see quite a few different cases coming with the same internal chassis, and maybe they tweak the outsides a little bit more. But the be-all and end-all of it is, it's here ready as a cheap option if cheaper motherboard combos become available later on. But in reality, you're now wondering about thermals. The problem is this hardware is completely different to the hardware that we use with all of the other cases. So at this present moment in time, it would be unfair for us to be able to say how it performed. Also, because I put an AIO in the roof, and at the moment with the cases, we normally test with an air cooler. But you do get 3 140mm fans in the front, loads of airflow. It's all going to depend on your CPU cooler and if you run an AIO in the roof. The only thing I will say about the cooling is it's not the quietest. I've had it set throughout the filming with the fans on 800 RPM, and it is quite audible. So it is not going to be a setup for those of you out there that want silence. But if you're going to have headphones on, you're just going to be gaming and it doesn't really matter, then it's going to be a moot point for you anyway. But I actually really like it. And like I said, the only down point was those little brackets in the back. And if you're looking for a cheap case with RGB fans that you can fit Project Zero in and a 360mm AIO, I think it's one of the prettiest ones out there.